Good afternoon. I hope all of you have had a good day. I decided tonight to make some red beans and rice and boiled cabbage. I'm going to make a little bit of cornbread to go with it, and that's going to be our supper. So I decided I would share this with you. I'm going to take I do one thing while something else is doing. So I have a couple of pieces of bacon here, and I'm going to cut this up just in a half. And I'm going to put it over here in my skillet. And using my, when I make cornbread, I don't usually, if I'm going to put it in the oven, I put it in a cast iron. But if I'm doing it on top of the stove, I put it in a non-stick. It just makes it easy to flip and do in it. It doesn't try to stick to it quite as bad. The red beans and rice, I'm going to turn on my ground beef, and I'm going to chop. I have a small onion, and I'm going to chop it up and put it in my meat while it's cooking. I'm also going to get some pepper that I put up out of my garden, and I'm going to cut it up in there as well. Someone said on one of the comments the other day that their spouse was allergic to bell pepper. You don't always have to put bell pepper. If you can just put onions or whatever you like. I also like to cook with green onions. I was telling my husband it was about time for us to get the garden tilled up and get it ready for some greens, and I want to plant some green onions, but we got to wait till it gets a little cooler, because down here in South Mississippi it is some kind of hot. And I don't just pile in the onions. I kind of work with it and see. That was a small onion, but this is probably, I'm probably just going to put half of that. Some people might want more. I just don't like, I love to cook with onion, but I just don't like it just piled with onion. So I'm going to put that right there. I got to get my peppers, and I'll be right back. I think I might have said this in another video, but when I plant my peppers in the garden, when I bring them in, I wash them, and then I cut them in halves. I pull the inside out of them and cut them in halves, and I put them in a freezer bag. I let them dry first, then I put them in a freezer bag, and I wash them, and then I cut them in half, pull the stuff out, and I kind of beat that off a little bit, and then put them in the bag once that outside of it dries. But you don't want to put them up wet, because these are real fresh. They still look real fresh. I will run them under water, and they will be as good as right out of the garden. Okay, so I'm going to cut up a few peppers in here. I got to flip my bacon. I'm cooking this bacon, and I won't cook it completely crisp, kind of, because I like that crispy stuff. But we're not eating bacon. That's not why I'm cooking it. We probably will eat a little, but it's because it's going to be in the cabbage. So we will, I will put some of it with the fat still on the bacon in the cabbage. Also, I'm not having a large group today, and I will be making only half of a head of cabbage, and put the other back in the refrigerator till another time. Okay, so here is my ground beef. And turn that bacon off. My red beans and rice are a little bit different than other people's. I kind of made up my own recipe. Some people says it's kind of more like a chili. But I take a pound of ground beef, or according if you're going to make for a larger crowd, you'd want to. I put ground beef, onions, peppers. I salt and pepper it and put seasoned salt of some kind. I like to use the Tony Chachere's for that seasoned salt. And I usually add garlic salt. I'm a big garlic fan. And we're going to cook this down good. I like to put my onions and peppers in here so it's cooked down good. I got a thing of tomatoes out of my freezer. And I have them over here in this pot. And I had let them cook while the ground beef was cooking. And that's why I said sausage. I was fixing to tell y'all that. Sometimes I cut up sausage and cook it in another pot, just kind of cook it down a little bit. That poke sausage or the deer sausage is so fine. I just cut it in ringlets and cook it, till the sides are a little brown. And I pour it over here in my tomato sauce, or that right now it's just a thing of tomatoes. If you don't have freezer tomatoes, you can just buy a can of diced tomatoes. I would probably get like one of those 29-ounce cans. A little bitty can's not going to be enough. But I'm going to pour this in there. Turn my pot off here. And I'm going to pour this in here. This was not, when I buy ground beef, I do not buy 80-20. To me, that is just a waste. It has a lot of fat in it. I buy 90-10. You might pay a little bit more, but you don't have the waste and you don't have grease everywhere that you got to try to keep out of your food. So lacking just a small amount, I could pour all of it in there. Okay, I'm going to scoot this over to this burner now. All right, and I've got that in there. Now, this is kind of what's different about mine. I use the dark red kidney beans. I had already taken the lid off. I drained the juice, and I'm gonna pour the kidney beans in here. Now I've ran out of dark red, and I've tried it with other things, and it doesn't taste the same. It's just not very good, to be honest. You need the dark red kidney beans for this. Had a little leaf of the onion still in there. So, what I've got in there now is the ground beef, the kidney beans, the tomatoes, the peppers, and the onions. And I'm still letting it cook. Well, next I'm going to put, well, I'll tell you what I didn't do. I get busy talking and then forget. And then when I watch back on the video, I'm like, oh my goodness, I left that out or this out. That's the seasoned salt. This is the onion salt. The garlic salt. You could put a little onion salt. I don't usually. And this recipe also needs pepper. You need some pepper in it. So I'm gonna put a little pepper in there. And this little pot filler is just the doings. I'm gonna add a little more water. If you don't have a pot filler and you start to build a house, get you one. Put it over your stove, it is fine. And I put enough water that it covered, just kind of came to the top of the meat. Now, I'm going to get a can of tomato paste. And I'm going to put it in there. This is a good supper anytime. But my bunch isn't real big on soups. I love soups. And this is really not a soup because you make rice to go with it. But when it's cold and you've been outside doing around and you come inside and you got a big pot of this on, oh my goodness, it's good. And it is good to eat with Fritos or Doritos, or you can dip them in there, and that's good too. Okay, I'm going to turn this way low. And next I'm going to start working on my cabbage. I really should have started that before I did my red beans, but I didn't. So I'm going to cut this in half. Gotta be careful not to cut my bar because I didn't get my little cutter board out. Hang on just 1 minute. I cut out this little centerpiece right here. That's the core. You don't want that. It's not tasty. I'm gonna wash this and I'll be right back. Okay. I just got a small pot. And I'm just gonna kind of cut it into some chunks. You don't want real big chunks. You want it easy enough you can handle it when you are eating. You don't want to have to try to be cutting while you're eating. If you just go ahead and cut it kind of bite size now. Cabbage will look like you've got a huge pot full. And then when you go to cook it and it cooks down, it's not near as much as you look like you thought you might have. But this will be plenty for me and Tommy. So, and I got leaves going everywhere. All right, I'm gonna take this pot filler. And fill up the pot. So, okay, now what I'm going to do is take my bacon and I'm just going to put it over in there, kind of in the whole pieces. Like I told y'all, I didn't fry it till it was real crisp. It does have some crispy to it, but I'm just putting it in there for the flavor. You can eat it, it's really good to eat. But I've left me some grease. Well, look, it runs to the side and I can't show y'all. I left me some grease in there and I might add a little butter to it if it's not enough. Sometimes I put oil, sometimes I put butter, just according to what fancy I got to put whichever. So we're going to let this cook and I'm going to get my rice going, and I will get my cornbread ready to put in the skillet, and I will be back shortly. Okay, I'm back. I put this cabbage on to cook, and as you can see, it's cooked down. I didn't put my salt in while I had y'all on here a while ago, but I had to put my salt. I also put pepper and put the lid on it and let it cook down, and it smells good. Now, the other thing that I did, Miss Lee Price told me years ago, they came to our church one Sunday for some kind of a meeting. Maybe that was our dedication. No, I don't think it was something we had going on in church. And she had fixed a big thing of jambalaya. And her rice was just so good. And I just always struggle making rice. And so I asked her, I said, oh my goodness, tell me what kind of rice, or how do you make your rice so fluffy? Now this was years ago. And she said, well girl, I go get that minute rice and you just put however much water you put on to boil, that's how much rice you put in there. That has just been the best thing. So I put a cup of water on in this little pot to boil. If I'm just making it for me and my husband, I just put it in a small little pot. It's boiling, the water is. I'm gonna pour some salt in here while it's just the water. And then I had poured my cup of minute rice. I'm gonna put it in there. So after I do that, I'm just gonna stir it around in there a little bit. And I'm just gonna let it come to a boil. And I'm gonna turn it off and put the lid on it. And in a minute, you've got good rice. And it's real good once you get it, once it, you know, has a minute, then you want to fluff it with a fork so it's fluffy and it's really good. Don't make it compact. I got my, you know, you don't ever know what you sound like till you see yourself on camera. I got to quit saying, Anyway, when I put my cornmeal in my bowl and my flour, I am going to add 2 eggs. And this time, I don't think I did this on the other recipe, but I had this leftover onion. And this is very, very, very tiny, very small slithers. I'm going to put very tiny, tiny little, just little trimmings. And more than this kind is that good green onion kind. Oh my goodness, it is so good when you put it in your cornbread. And I just put a little bit in there. And I'm gonna go ahead and put my milk. And I realized I was just about out of milk. I think I got enough, but if I don't, my mother always just added a little water to her milk jug. Went right on like it was milk, and it tasted really good. Okay, I'm gonna mix this up. And what I did was put mostly cornmeal, and this one I put a little flour. Sometimes I don't put flour, sometimes I do. Just kind of what mood I'm in, and I was running low on cornmeal. Well, I keep stuff in the freezer. I keep flour, cornmeal, sugar in my deep freeze. But I didn't want to have to go dig that out right now. So, I just added the rest with flour. I'm gonna move my cabbage over here. And instead of just cooking them to death, I've cooked them a good long while. I'm gonna put the lid on them, and I'm just gonna let them sit there, and they will finish. Now, one thing that I am going to do, that I just saw in the refrigerator, I had cut some okra yesterday, and I mixed a little flour and a little cornmeal, and put in here on top of my okra. I'm not gonna cook this on the video. Okra, it's good anyway, but it's best if it's hot. So I'm gonna fry that so it will be crispy right before time. I'm gonna still scoop this over one more. Maybe I'll get it together in a minute. Okay. Now I had my bacon grease in there, and I put just a small amount of vegetable oil instead of butter. Butter's good, vegetable oil, any of it is good. I didn't tell y'all the other day when I did the cornmeal, the cornbread, but I do not like to try to flip my cornbread with a plastic spatula. You need a thin tipped, they don't have to be expensive, just something with a very thin tip on it. That helps you get up under there better, and it helps you be able to flip it easier. So I'm gonna let this cook a minute. And I'm not gonna cook it just on wide open. I'm gonna turn it down some. I'm gonna put a lid on it. My husband and I were married 37 years ago, and when the little community we lived in gave us our shower, they always give us a set of Duncan pots. Well, I got my Duncan pots, and 37 years later, this is all that I've got left of it. I don't even know why, but this has been the best lid. It fits everything. So I'm gonna put it on that pot and let it sit there for a while. Sometimes I'll look at it and think, oh my goodness, I need to just get rid of that. But I really like that lid. It's my favorite lid of any that I've got. I'll show y'all right quick while that's cooking a minute. My zinnias that I got out of my yard a while ago. I have always loved zinnias. I just love zinnias. And for some reason, I could never grow them. And my little neighbor that I love dearly, she died this year. She was 92. And zinnias was just one of her specialties. She could grow some pretty zinnias. And the day before she passed, I had gone down and carried some food for the family, and I went over to her bedside and I said, oh, you just ought to see my zinnias. And with her just right close to passing, she just smiled, and it made me know there's no telling what kind of zinnias and much more that we don't even know that she is being able to see today. And even then, flowers are very, very precious to me. You know, I can do this show 100 times and I don't ever drop a piece of cornbread until I'm videoing. But it was just a little piece. See how pretty that is? That comes out. So I'll keep working it back and forth, and that'll be the cornbread. On my red beans, let me just show y'all that right quick. I had to go back and I tasted it while I was off, and it needed some salt. So be sure you put plenty of salt, pepper, seasoned salt, and garlic salt. And I'll fry up this okra later with this cornbread, and we will have us some good supper. So hope to see y'all again soon. Y'all have a great night, and God bless.